You're listening to the Homeschool Journal, a show from the Memoria Press Podcast Network, where we bring you encouragement through real-life stories, homeschooling tips, and practical application to help you on your homeschool journey. Here's your host, Carrie McGraw.
Welcome back to the Homeschool Journal. I'm so glad you're with us today. We have a record number of guests. We've got a bunch of moms that are going to call in today and talk to us about their experiences in this special season. And yes, that is all about homeschooling Christmas. Now, this is the season of giving, and these moms are going to give their time with us, and they're going to share experiences, they're going to share traditions, and I'm definitely going to ask for some survival tactics. Because I know Christmas can mean so many different things, can be different stresses at different ages and different stages. For those of you out there who still have all your young ones, I remember that with great bliss, but it was busy. And then for those like me, where half of them are gone and half of them are still at home, it's another kind of stress just to try to get everybody together. And then for some of us, it's a remembrance time of loved ones that we've lost. So in this season, I hope that we can bring comfort. And in the spirit of comfort, that you will go and grab a cup of hot cocoa and load it with marshmallows, no guilt. Sit back on the couch, put on a warm blanket, and listen with us as we talk about the beautiful season of Christmas. And I hope that you will take away new hopes, new ideas, and great cheer. So we are starting our episode today with the multi-talented Elisabeth Cauley out of South Carolina. Welcome, Elisabeth. I'm so glad you're here.
Hey, Carrie. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's exciting here today. We're going to have 4 moms today. That's our biggest guest list yet, Elisabeth. So before we get into some questions that I have for you, I want to tell our listeners a little bit about you and your family. Elisabeth has 3 children, ages 9, 6, and 3. And that one, well, they're almost 3, right? Almost 3?
Yes, almost 3. December 14th.
December 14th. So nearly a Christmas baby. And while your background is in public education, you have always homeschooled and you've been using Memoria Press materials for 5 years. Now, everyone should know also that Elisabeth started a cottage school in her community in 2018. So when I describe Elisabeth as a busy mom, trust me, she's a very busy mom. And for all of our busy moms out there, Elisabeth, here's where we're going to start. How do you switch gears from homeschooling to the holidays when with all these things that run into any homeschooler schedule, particularly yours? How do you switch those gears? I'm hoping that you allow yourself a break.
Absolutely, we do. And this has certainly changed with the ages and stages of our children. When they were younger, with newborns and toddlers, our schedule pretty much just stayed the same, revolved around their routines, and we just incorporated holiday activities into their schedule. But now that we have 2 school-age children, we definitely do take a pause from our school schedule and shift gears entirely so that we can fully enjoy the holiday season.
That's good to hear because I think we all deserve it, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And so tell me about that shifting, that whole process of shifting gears and, what you allow yourself to do. And maybe you've got some survival tactics you can share with us, please.
Sure. Well, the longer we have homeschooled, which, as you mentioned, was 5 years now with Memoria Press, the more I have realized our need for margin in our family schedule. And not just during the Christmas season, but really all year long. Our home is much more peaceful, and Christmas is so much more enjoyable when we do take a break and just focus on holiday activities instead of adding them on top of a school schedule. So as you mentioned, we are a part of a cottage school, and so we follow our school calendar, which breaks the second week of December. And so when we get to the second week of December and we finish out that week's worth of school, we zip up those backpacks and we close the curriculum manuals and we set them aside for 3 weeks and just enjoy all the books and the music and the activities of the holiday season to the fullest and enjoy a much more relaxed schedule. Some of those activities that we do are pulled from their curriculum, such as in third grade, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is a
Yes.
book that my son will read, and in first grade, the Laura Ingalls Wilder Christmas Treasury. So those things provide a great transition into the Christmas season while still adding some structure. But it is much more relaxed than
And Memoria Press, they plan it very well in that way.
Yes.
Absolutely. Leading the families into the season is a beautiful thing that they do. And I love what you said about margin, allowing margin and that break. And you also applied that to the rest of the year too. And so how does that work for you in the rest of the year? Just a little bit, touch on that really quick.
Just being mindful of the limitations of our family during whatever season that we are in. So directly related to survival at Christmas, our last baby was born December 14th. So that Christmas 3 years ago looked very different from the ones before it. And so whether this Christmas season you're juggling an illness or moving or welcoming a new baby or death and grief, just be realistic about what is wise and good for your family and look for the blessings for the season that you're in.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And, one of the things that I always did was, and I called it clear the calendar, just clear the calendar. And that meant no doctor's appointments and no extra sports or activities, just because the Christmas season can bring with it so much to begin with, especially when they're young. So let's talk about the activities that you all do in the home, these special traditions that are that your family thinks is really important and that you participate in, because the Christmas season, when I use that word, Elisabeth, what I'm referring to is a grander time for me anyway, because for me it begins with Advent, it begins with the preparation season, and then I move into the Christmas season. So tell me about, for you, how that begins.
That's right. I think to really enjoy that season, you do, when possible, need to plan ahead, because Advent starts way before Christmas. And so
way before.
Kind of planning ahead and prepping the things that you want to include. And so for us, that is Advent devotions. And we have a beautiful wood-carved candle holder that sits atop a fresh evergreen wreath. And so each day of Advent, we gather together as a family and we read a devotion together. This has also, changed with the stages and ages and attention span of our children. But with the purpose of gathering everyone together, of drawing our hearts heavenward, and having something that we are intentional to do each day leading up to Christmas.
Now, some families find it challenging to balance the faith with the secular aspect of Christmas. And so how have you all managed to do that? And some people are afraid to bring up Santa Claus, but I'm going to bring him up. So, and because yours are still young and mine aren't. Can you share with us a little bit on that?
Sure. Well, we find we do enjoy Santa, and we find that Santa is a wonderful way to tie in the secular with the religious and to open up so many conversations about God's grace and the gifts that he bestows on his children. And I think that the beauty of our American Santa Claus are that his roots do come from a historical person, from St. Nicholas, who truly was a servant of Christ. And so those images of Santa Claus during the season are wonderful opportunities to discuss the real St. Nicholas, whose life should inspire us to more fully serve God, but also the myths and the legends that surround St. Nicholas and Father Christmas and Kris Kringle. Those stories can also be used to illustrate a greater and more glorious truth as well. So both Tolkien and Lewis embrace those fantasies as well, and I think that they can be a great way to give gifts in the name of Father Christmas as a tradition for our family, rests on that secret generosity of St. Nicholas and points our children to
the true gift, the gift of Christmas.
Absolutely.
And our Savior. Absolutely. The nativity of our Lord. Well, before we finish, any last things that you want to share as far as traditions, things that your family enjoys in the season?
Oh, we do. We love to bake Christmas cookies, to use the recipes that were my grandmother's and my husband's grandmother, and bake Christmas cookies to give as gifts. And we always make gingerbread Play-Doh. The children enjoy that.
Oh,
To
that's
have
so
to
fun.
do.
I've never
Yes.
done that.
Oh, it smells delicious and keeps all the
Okay.
little hands occupied.
I may have to ask you for that recipe, and I may make my teenagers do that just because it sounds that fun. That may be a new Christmas tradition, even when you've got teenagers and older. Well, Elisabeth, thank you for sharing with us, and I hope that our listeners get to hear from you. You know, it doesn't have to be profound and huge, but the simple things, the simple time that your family spends together can be that extra special Christmas, and setting aside, like you said, giving margin. Elisabeth, thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Merry Christmas to you and your family, and I hope we talk soon. So our next call-in mom is Christine Howieson from Central Indiana. Christine, welcome. You are my second of 4 guests today. This is a novel day with 4 guests that I'm running through. We're so happy to have you.
Great. Thanks for having me, Carrie. I'm excited to share holiday traditions.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to get to those after I let our listeners know just a little bit about you. Christine has 3 children, ages 11, 9, and 7. This is another young, busy family, which we got to speak to Elisabeth earlier in her young, busy family. But Christine is what I call a power mom. She has worked for the Navy. She worked in park districts outside the suburbs of Chicago, and this was all prior to staying home with her children. She has been a classical homeschooler with Memoria Press since her oldest was in kindergarten, and they are currently using the Simply Classicals curriculum. So, Christine, I know that you and I have talked about, before about the preparation for Christmas. So that's really where I want to start in our conversation, and things that I know that you have to share with our listeners and special traditions. So, we both come from faith where, we have a liturgical calendar, and that preparation time is, very important to our families. So I'm going to open up with that and let you tell our listeners a little bit about your Christmas season and how it starts.
Yeah, sure. Just for a quick little background, some of our traditions have evolved out of necessity. My husband is a letter carrier, and so we kind of don't see him in December. And he's always busy. We don't get to spend those, Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, Saturday, we don't get to spend all that time together.
Oh my goodness.
But I definitely grew up in a family where we spent that time, getting the tree up, and we'd go to the mall and shop, and we'd go to a movie and stuff and spend all that time together. So when my husband and I got married and that time wasn't available, I really kind of had to shift our focus because it was stressing me out. Like, getting the tree up on the day after Thanksgiving all by myself with 3 kids, 3 and under. And I just, was like, and then I remembered, wait a minute, we have the whole month of December to prepare for Christmas.
Right. The birth of our Lord. Right.
And so, I searched, high and low family traditions and things like that. And I really kind of wanted to keep things simpler. But I really struggled with not having a decorated house for the month of December. And so some of our things, again, have evolved through time, where we do place the most focus on more religious items in our the month of December, but we still add slowly in some of the things that I was trying to do maybe in a weekend before. Right. And so we do set up a little Christmas tree, just a little teeny tiny one, and we put purple lights on it and purple garland, and then we use that as our Jesse tree. Which are basically Old Testament readings that discuss Christ's genealogy. And so every night you read a different part of the Bible from the Old Testament. And so every night you put on a little ornament that I wanted to do something fancy, but the kids colored them. I laminated them years ago and they just stick them on the tree. But last year, one of the other things that I do is I make an Advent wreath out of pine needles. We do a fake Christmas tree. So this is where I get some real, pine kind of smell in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized as I had this semblance of branches, I was like, well, this is actually better for the Jessie tree. We add color to these kind of brown, to this kind of brown tree stems. And I added it to a glass jar. And then by the end of the season, it's full of these colorful ornaments. And so I had sent you a picture of like our prayer table. And so we switched last year from putting the ornaments on the Christmas tree to putting it on these branches. And then we have Mary traveling each day on the back side of these numbers. We are able to see how many, it counts down the days, and Mary travels closer to the tree.
Oh, how special. Oh, did you find this somewhere, or was this something that you...
I did find it online somewhere, and I'm really sorry that I can't give the original person credit because I searched high and low for where I found those. But it's just simply, they're just numbers, 1 to 25. So we don't necessarily start on the first Sunday of Advent, but that's more of a December tradition. And then I bought the Mary statue, the Mary and Joseph on a donkey statue at Amazon. And then the Jessie ornaments, again, the numbers on the top and on the back side of it is the Jessie ornament. And you can Google those coloring sheets.
Sure. Absolutely. And that's a great thing to mention to, our young families, especially. I mean, obviously there's so much out there that we can find as far as activities. So kind of in that same line, speaking of activities, you mentioned earlier all the typical season things, the shopping, then, so how does your family mix that secular with the faith traditions throughout the season of Christmas?
Yeah, so we just really spread it out. We're in a college town, and the college puts up this really big Christmas tree. But because of graduation being around the 15th of December, we actually have to do that early. It's not something we could do closer to Christmas because they actually take it down. Mm-hmm. And they, the dining services makes this huge probably about preschool height gingerbread house every year. And the kids can actually go inside the gingerbread house.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a dream.
College, yes. And then college kids, they have a little gingerbread scene competition. So there'll be 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different, there was like a Harry Potter one. There was a Disney one, or just, different kinds of scenes made out of gingerbread. And so then we'll go and visit those. Our town has a parade that's in early December. We'll do that. We do go look at Christmas lights, and we just turn on the Polar Express while we're looking at the lights.
Oh, that's so sweet. We do the same thing. Drive around and try to find the best neighborhoods, for all the Christmas lights.
Exactly. Uh-huh. And then on Saturday, we turn our family movie nights just into Christmas movie nights.
Oh, how precious. See, and these are memories that we make and the kids, carry forward. So the last thing I want to ask you is about, being a busy mom. Do you have any tips for moms, as they look at shifting homeschooling this busy season, all the things that have to come with it, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so when December rolls around, I know some families will take the whole month of December off. And if you can do that, I think that's excellent advice. I have found that we can't quite take the whole month off, but I definitely around November kind of look at where in the curriculum I want the kids to be by Christmas. And then I kind of just schedule it out that way. And we're usually able to reduce the workload by about half in December because we start school in August, very early mm-hmm. August, so that we can accommodate for that. And then, just let the afternoons be filled with fun, things. Maybe you bake a dozen cookies on one afternoon, and then maybe the next week you bake a dozen more instead of trying to bake, 300 cookies in a day or whatever. And just really taking the whole month of December, and anything that you would like to accomplish, just map it out.
Oh, that's very good. To map it out, to plan it out, plan ahead so it doesn't jump up on you and, know what you need in the cupboard, for the sake of those cookies.
Yeah, so you can get the supplies ahead, but then also don't fret. And if you're a young family with kids 4 and under, you can start building traditions where some families have been doing this for 7, 8, 9 years. You might not be able to get to that place. Let it wait. Do what you can this year, and next year maybe you can add something different. Make a list of what you would really like to see and pick about half of it, and then maybe try and add one more thing the following year.
Christine, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Great motivation to our families to think forward about building traditions. Christine, thank you so much for all the time that you've spent with us today and for sharing with us and for your ideas, your unique ideas on Christmas traditions. I wish you and your family Merry, Merry Christmas.
You as well, Carrie. Thanks, you.
Hon. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, I have on the phone with me Kelly from Missouri. Now, Kelly is guest number 3 of 4. I know it's a little bit longer today, folks, but hang in here with us. We've moved from some really young families were our first 2 interviews, Kelly, and now we're moving into families that are more like mine. We've got teenagers, and we're moving on up the scale. Kelly, welcome today. I'm so glad you're here with us.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
All right. Well, let me tell everybody a little bit about you before we go anywhere. Kelly has 3 boys. Her oldest 2 are Memoria Press Online Academy homeschool high school students. And her youngest is still homeschooling with her at the age of 16. He has autism, so he uses the Memoria Press classical composition and first form Latin. And something really special about Kelly's family is that her pastor husband has been serving their parish for 20 years. And so, Kelly, with that in mind, I can only imagine that being a pastor's wife, there have got to be some really special traditions that you can share with us today and our listeners.
Sure. Right. We do have a lot of church-related traditions. It is a busy time of year for my husband, but whether or not he was a pastor, we would still be very involved during the Christmas season. One special tradition that we do have that's not really something affiliated with our church, but we've grown into over the years and have enjoyed celebrating with our children is St. Nicholas Day, which is on December 6th. And we started observing this day to kind of keep the focus of Christmas on Christ, but still have the St. Nicholas tradition of gift exchanges. So we started doing this when our children were probably, I would say, older elementary age, and we've stuck with it ever since. And my 20-somethings humor us still, and will put their shoes out in expectation of receiving the small St. Nicholas gifts on the eve of December 5th.
Well, I love that because we've talked previously in this podcast about, starting traditions. And I love the fact that you are going to keep them going no matter what age the kiddos are. So tell us a little bit more about what they do with St. Nicholas Day.
Sure. So on December 5th, the evening before, we'll put our shoes out and with the expectation that St. Nick will visit that evening. And he brings 5 golden coins, a peppermint stick, and now socks, but at one time it was additional candy. And over the years, the 5 chocolate coins have morphed into 5 gold $1 coins. And now they're a $5 bill because we found that the $5 or the golden coins were being mistaken for tokens on the college campuses. So my children nicely said they would prefer a $5 bill. I know. So, and they humor me, I think, because they will never refuse cash and then clothing to socks. So we have fun with it. It really is centered around a book, a children's book about St. Nicholas that focuses on the fact that he was a real person, a Christian bishop who was known for his generosity. And the legend goes on to explain that he paid for the dowry of 3 poor young ladies. And so we used to read that book every year on December 6th as part of our morning homeschool routine. We would start December 6th with that and then move on with the rest of our day. and sucking on peppermint sticks. So
yeah, more sugar. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Okay. So what about other things that your family might do that's special about the Christmas season? And the Christmas season, as we've kind of touched on, really not just with you but with others, is really not. It's not just about Christmas Day.
No,
So tell me a little bit more about the other things that you guys get to do.
Sure. So we do follow the church calendar in our church body. And so we actually begin the Christmas season with Advent, which is a 4-week kind of build up towards Christmas Day.
Kind of preparation time. Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And so we decorate our house also in keeping with kind of building up with anticipation to Christmas Day when we celebrate the birth of Christ. And the first thing to come out in our house, the first Sunday of Advent, is our Advent wreath. And we put that in the middle of our dinner table, and we light it at evening when we're eating dinner. And we have had Advent devotions over the years, and currently we are working our way through reading the Psalms. It's kind of varied. As our children have gotten older, we used to use story Bibles, like the one that is in the Simply Classical curriculum.
Sure, right.
And now we just use our regular Bible now that our children are older. But that's always been kind of a focal point for us. And then the decorations in the house kind of gradually come out to kind of match how our church does it, because they don't have everything all up at once in Advent. They do the Advent wreath, and then the following week they get their tree up and decorate that with lights and the Christmas ornaments. So we kind of match what our church does, and that's been helpful in teaching the faith to our children. And come to find out, it's a helpful way to approach holidays with an autistic child.
Oh, really?
Yes, because it's kind of an overwhelming time for them. They feel emotions,
too much
of excitement a little bit more intensely than most people, and it can be overwhelming. The sensory input would be too much
stimuli.
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
Right. So Kelly, about Epiphany, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a big thing for our family. So thank you for sharing that. Because for our family, Christmas, it really begins on Christmas Day. And on December 26th, I get a little depressed. I'm just going to admit this for a second, because everybody shuts off all the Christmas music, and for us, it just started. So
Yes.
Not that I haven't turned on some Christmas music beforehand, because we're leading up to it, but for us, in our faith, we go through to the feast day of the baptism of the Lord. That's where we end Christmas. But Epiphany is a common celebration here in our church, in that our church all gets together. So, and we have an open house. Now, I can't say that's going to happen this year, obviously. So this is a poignant time to share traditions, so that we can share a little bit of comfort with each other too, in this time and age. But I will say this too. I'm going to share this with you. I am always the one in the neighborhood that has their decorations up the longest. So
that would be
that great. See, I figured that's why I thought I could say that here. I'm in good company, I can tell. So tell me, the last thing I want to know, Kelly, is, and because you mentioned this about your autistic son and the sensory input, and yet we've talked earlier with other guests about how they transition into the season, but tell me how you transition out of this wonderful, happy season, and get back into the homeschool season. Switching that schedule on the backside can be just as difficult.
It is difficult, even when your children are not autistic. So it is even more difficult for our 16-year-old on the spectrum. So what we do during the 12 days of Christmas is we slowly start undecorating the house that we slowly decorated throughout Advent. And he often helps with that. He kind of needs to be part of that process to kind of give it closure each year. And really, I also do not just jump into the school routine right away with him. I kind of build that up. We'll maybe do 3 days in the 5-day school week and kind of build it up from there. Maybe it may take 2 or 3 weeks until we're back up to the 5-day school routine that we've established for our household. But having him be a part of the decorating and the undecorating to kind of...
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And that's very wise, Mom. I know you're a very wise mom.
Trial
and
and
that's a
error.
beautiful way. Well, I love how you talk about winding down the season. That's just as special on the backside. So Kelly, I want to say thank you so much for the traditions and the special observances that you have shared with us today. And I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, we are now with Debbie Rackers, another family from Missouri. Debbie's our fourth and final call-in for today that's going to spend a little bit of time with us sharing about her family's special traditions and how they make it through the season. Debbie, welcome.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thanks for being here with us. Now, I want to tell everybody a little bit about your family. You have 7 children. Your oldest is 26 and your youngest is 7. She has been homeschooling going on 15 years and using Memoria Press, and she currently has 3 that are still at home, actively homeschooling, an 11th grader, an 8th grader, and a 1st grader. And Debbie, you are the perfect person for me to ask about, with all these age ranges, do you take a break from homeschooling? I'm sure that you do, but beyond that, how do you get everybody back together?
Yeah, that has what we've done has just changed over the years, because when I started out, my oldest was in 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
We were all homeschooling. My husband worked at home. Like, we had flexibility. We would take the whole month of December off and just focus on, cleaning the house, because that doesn't ever get done when homeschooling is going on. We'd bake, we'd, get all the shopping done. And then, kids started hitting high school, and high schoolers have to take finals. And, there was a lot more pressure in the schedule that wasn't there when they were younger. And, I didn't want my kids to take a month off in December and then come back and have 2 weeks of lesson plans and then boom, finals of everything they've been doing since August, right?
Right.
So we really tried to schedule it so that we would be finished in mid-December.
Nice.
Knowing, of course, that if I schedule it to finish in mid-December, we might actually finish before Christmas. I had to build that extra week or week and a half in there because, things come up and we always get behind if we're supposed to hit week 16 or 18 by December 15th, we're happy if we hit it by December 23rd. But we try to take off in the middle of December and just have a week or so before Christmas where we can just kind of go take a deep breath and go, okay, now it's time to get ready for Christmas. The college kids come home, and once they come home, there's no getting the younger kids to focus.
Oh, sure.
The high schoolers can still get done and take their finals, but those younger kids, they want to go and play with the college kids that are home. And so, we try to take off from that mid-December. And then I used to not want to come back and start school until after Epiphany, January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have a big party on Epiphany, invite a bunch of friends over. After we moved, we didn't really have that party anymore. And it became apparent that the big kids, they wanted their summers. Their friends were, there was wiffle ball tournaments, and there was going to Six Flags, and there was going to this thing and that thing, and they wanted to be done by the end of May. And in order to do that, we had to start back earlier in January. So now we tend to start the first Monday after New Year's if we can. But again, there's still college kids home. They're usually here till mid-January. So, we try to start and just do it.
Right. And just jump into it. And that was kind of the way we restarted. I think I was a drill sergeant. Okay, it's school. I wasn't an ease it in mom. But let me say this. I'm wondering about, with all of your different ages and stages, it is beautiful, the breadth of your family. How have any of your traditions changed through the years? Are there still special things that you do because of that age range?
We have to be flexible and adapt as the kids get older. And we've one of the things I know that's changed is we have this tradition that my husband's family has of we put up the tree, earlier, but the star that you put on the top of the tree doesn't go up until Christmas Eve.
Oh.
And that's always the youngest kid that's old enough to be able to do it, puts the star on the tree. Well, now our youngest is 7, and she's getting too big to pick up and hold her up to put the star on the tree, So my son was, one of my sons was married in May, so we're anxiously awaiting grandchildren that can maybe help put that star up on the tree, But we had to kind of change some of those things around. I know we used to try to wait until mid-December to put the tree up, just so that we could, at least take the beginning of December to focus more on the preparation of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then with kids being gone for college, they wouldn't get home sometimes until, a few days before Christmas. And we didn't want to wait till then to put the tree up, but we didn't want them to not be there when we were decorating the tree. So for the last, 6 or 7 years, we've put the tree up on the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Right.
And at first I was like, I can't put the tree up that early. That's way too early. But it's what enables everyone to be there. And
Yeah, because Debbie, I'm there too. I've got, one that lives out of town now, and I'm lucky to get her back in. I've got one that's in college and get that one back in. And so that's where our Christmas has moved to. And I want, other families that are listening to hear that, you can adjust and it's okay. I think that the focus is, where our celebration is, where our hearts lie in the nativity of our Lord and in welcoming him as our ultimate gift of the season. And all of our families strive to do that. So, Debbie, this has been wonderful because you are a voice of wisdom on the scheduling of a large family, on managing all the ages and all the different stages. And we all get there at some point in time. So it's perfect to end our podcast with someone that can focus our younger families on the future. Debbie, I'm grateful for your time today, and I wish your family Merry Christmas.
Well, and I hope you all have a Merry Christmas, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, Debbie. God bless. Friends, I know that you have enjoyed time here today with our 4 fantastic moms who shared with us their experiences, their traditions, and all the wonderful things that make up their Christmas seasons. I hope you take from that the importance of starting traditions, of continuing traditions. And before we go, I'll just share with you really quickly some of the traditions that have been important to my family. Over the Christmas season, and really starting at Thanksgiving and then beyond Christmas into Epiphany, we always find ways to serve. You'll find us at a local soup kitchen. You'll find us at a food line that's meant specially for families in a local neighborhood. You'll find us at nursing homes singing carols or playing bingo. And there may not be much of that we can all do right now, but take comfort in the fact that we will all make this a special holiday season as we welcome the birth of our Savior and remember that Jesus is the reason for the season. From all of us here at Memoria Press and the Homeschool Journal, I wish you a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Homeschool Journal. If you like the show, consider subscribing on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. A huge thank you to the Memoria Press Podcast Network for featuring our show. If you'd like more information, you can go to memoriapress.com. I'm Carrie McGraw. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.